Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're looking at something pretty profound, the idea of final words. You know, how they can stick with you, especially after a really long silence. We're jumping into an ancient text, the very message that closes the Old Testament. Think about it. 400 years of perceived silence from the divine, and then Krosman. These words, Malachi. It makes them incredibly significant, right? And here's where it gets really interesting for our deep dive today. This text doesn't just wrap things up neatly. It tackles a huge problem head on, the breakdown of relationships. Not just spiritual ones, but deep within the family unit itself. So our mission, if you will, is to unpack this message. We want to explore why it still feels so relevant, maybe even uncomfortably so, and see what it offers, both as a serious warning, but also real hope for maybe mending some of those vital connections in our own lives. Okay, so let's get into the text itself. These final verses, they talk about remembering certain standards, unchanging ones, and then there's this promise of a messenger coming. Yeah, he uses this powerful image of Elijah the prophet showing up before a great and awesome day. It says, "Remember the law of my servant Moses. Behold, I will send you Elijah."
That first command, remember, it's striking, isn't it? It's not just like, oh yeah, I recall that. It's much more active. It's about obedience, application. Taking those foundational principles, the law of Moses given at Horeb, Sinai, and actually living them out now, it's a callback to covenant faithfulness.
Right, not just knowing it, but doing it.
Exactly. And the Elijah the prophet part, Elijah historically was this figure who confronted huge spiritual decay. So invoking his name here signals a powerful ministry is coming, one of restoration, revival, preparing people for a major divine intervention. Later, this was seen as fulfilled by John the Baptist, preparing the way. It really flags that something big is on the horizon.
And then we land on what feels like the absolute core. And he will turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. That phrase, turn the hearts, it hits hard.
What does it really mean, though? Is it just about feeling warmer towards each other, or is there more to it, like actual changes in behavior? That's a great question. It's definitely deep. It implies a complete, almost radical change, a shift in affection, loyalty, yes, and emotional change. But it's more than just feelings. It's about restoring relationships that were broken. It points to spiritual conversion, renewal, healing that fundamental alienation we can feel. So it absolutely includes how we act towards each other. It's that interchange leading to outward action, especially within the family.
Okay, so the potential for healing is huge. But what if that doesn't happen? What are the stakes? The text warns, lest I come and strike the land with a curse.
Oh.
That sounds final.
It does sound incredibly severe, and that word curse, the original Hebrew, is herem. It means total destruction, or like devoting something to destruction. It's not a light warning. It really underscores how critical these family bonds are seen to be, not just for individuals, but for the health of the whole society.
Wow.
The implication is stark. If these core relationships unravel, the society itself is essentially under threat of coming completely undone.
So why was this message so urgent then? Let's step back into that historical moment, around 430, 400 BC. What was actually going on with the people who first heard this?
Well, they were back from exile, the temple was rebuilt. You'd think things would be on the upswing, but spiritually, not so much. What you had was a kind of ritualistic religion, going through the motions, but the heart wasn't in it. There was widespread compromise. The priesthood was corrupt. People were unfaithful in their marriages. There was social injustice. They'd kind of lost touch with the core principles of their faith. Those laws remembered from Horeb.
So it wasn't just a few people messing up, it was more systemic, a societal problem really showing up in family breakdowns.
Exactly, you hit it. The breakdown in human relationships, particularly families, was like a mirror reflecting their spiritual state, their drift from the covenant. It highlights something really important, actually. Genuine spiritual revival often starts, or at least shows up very clearly, in healed families, restored connections between generations.
That makes sense. The personal and the communal, the spiritual and the relational, they're all tied together.
They really are. It suggests our connection with the divine is deeply interwoven with how we connect with each other, especially those closest to us.
Okay, so let's bring this forward. If that ancient society showed these cracks, are we seeing similar things today? Does this warning about alienated hearts echo now? What are the signs?
Well, the parallels are concerning, frankly. If you look at the data, it paints a picture that resonates with that ancient warning. For example, thinking back to 2002, about 34% of kids in the U.S., that's 24 million, were living without their biological father in the home.
A third? Wow.
Yeah. And more recently, nearly 20 million children, about 27%, live in single-parent homes. The rates vary across different communities, but it's a significant number overall. And then there's divorce. Around 43% of first marriages ending within 15 years, affecting about 1 million kids every year. Plus, a significant number of births occur outside of marriage.
And it's not just about physical presence, is it? You mentioned lack of contact, too.
That's a crucial point. About 40% of kids in homes without their fathers haven't seen them in the past year. And half have never even been inside their father's home. That indicates a real disconnect.
Those statistics are just, they're really sobering. What's the actual downstream effect on kids when, fathers' hearts are turned away or they're just not involved?
The impact is significant, and it ripples out. Research consistently shows these children are, on average, 2 to 3 times more likely to face poverty, to struggle with drug use. They also tend to experience more educational challenges, health issues, emotional and behavioral problems. They're more vulnerable to abuse, sadly, and more likely to get involved in crime.
That's a heavy toll.
It really is. For instance, one statistic showed boys from intact marriages were only half as likely to end up incarcerated compared to peers from other family structures. Shows protective effect.
Now, a question that often comes up, and it's an important one, isn't a mother's love enough? We know so many single mothers are doing absolutely heroic work.
Absolutely. And it's vital to acknowledge the incredible strength and dedication of mothers in every situation. This isn't about diminishing that in any way. However, the research does indicate something important. A father's love and involvement, how a child perceives that love is just as important as a mother's for predicting healthy development, socially, emotionally, cognitively.
So not either.
Exactly. It's about the unique, vital contributions of both parents when possible. We see things like teens and intact, 2-parent married families being half as likely to use illegal drugs. Fathers often play a different role in, say, regulating aggression among adolescents. And child abuse rates, significantly lower in 2-parent homes compared to single-parent homes. Poverty rates, too.
Okay. So a father's engaged presence brings something distinct and crucial to the table for a child's well-being.
That's what the data strongly suggests. It creates a more robust foundation.
Right. Given these stakes
Yeah.
and that powerful call from the ancient text to turn hearts, let's get practical. How can we actually work towards this? Starting with fathers, what can they do?
Well, it really starts with an internal shift, a reorientation. First, and perhaps foundational for everything else, is turning their heart towards a higher power. This isn't just for their own sake, though it is, but it benefits their partner and profoundly impacts their child. Being that role model of integrity can break negative cycles.
Makes sense. Start with the foundation.
Second, turn your heart to your partner. It's often said, and I think there's deep truth here, the best thing a father can do for his children is to love and prioritize their mother or his partner. That security is huge.
Building that strong base for the family.
Precisely. Third, consciously turn your heart to your child. Be present. Be a role model, yes, but also share your life struggles included. Pray with them, talk with them, and try to tune into their underlying worries. Are my parents okay? Am I safe? Will I fit in? Your engagement helps soothe those fears.
Being emotionally available, not just physically present.
Yes. And finally, love them through action. This is that idea of agape love, doing what's genuinely best for them. That includes discipline, but discipline rooted in love. It means setting healthy boundaries, holding them accountable, sometimes letting natural consequences teach, using actions more than just lectures, sticking to your values, and always prioritizing the relationship over just the rules.
That's a really helpful framework for fathers. What about the other side of the coin, children turning their hearts to their parents? This applies to adult children too, right? And it can be really tough if the past holds a lot of pain.
You're absolutely right. It can be incredibly difficult, especially with painful histories. For some adult children, connecting deeply with a higher power might need to come first. That can be the source of strength needed for healing, maybe even eventual forgiveness towards a parent.
So it's not always a simple, direct path.
Not at all. But the underlying principle, the ancient wisdom about honoring, respecting, and, where possible, loving parents, it remains vital for healthy individuals and societies. And children, even adult children, have a significant impact on their parents' sense of well-being and legacy. Think about it. A wise child brings joy, right? Disrespect, conversely, can be deeply wounding. The ancient texts are quite strong on this. As parents age, offering the gifts of listening, of caring, of presence, it mirrors the care they likely gave us. It's about acknowledging that fundamental bond, even with all its imperfections.
It's fascinating how these principles, thousands of years old, feel so applicable, so practical for the challenges families face right now. So less like history and more like a timeless guide. And thinking bigger picture again, this prophecy about Elijah, the day of the Lord, It clearly points beyond just individual families, doesn't it? What's the larger implication there?
It does. The immediate fulfillment, as we said, points to John the Baptist preparing the way for Jesus. And Jesus is presented as the ultimate heart-turner, the one who makes reconciliation with God possible and forms a new kind of spiritual family. But that phrase, the day of the Lord, it often has layers of meaning. There can be historical fulfillments, specific interventions, but also an ultimate final day of reckoning and restoration still to come.
So the warning carries weight across time.
Yes. And it's important to see God's warnings, like this one, not as threats born of cruelty, but as expressions of mercy, of compassion. They're an opportunity, a space given for change before the consequences become final. There's an urgency there, a sense that the time for this heart-turning is crucial and, well, not infinite.
So bringing it all together for you, the listener, right
Right.
now, what's the takeaway? How does this ancient message land in your life today?
I think the call is threefold, really. Remember those foundational truths. Prepare your heart, be open to divine work in your life, and then actively participate. Get involved in the work of turning hearts, starting right where you are, in your own family. It's a call to be part of the solution, part of the healing.
So as the Old Testament closes on this powerful note, we hear that echo. Unchanging standards, yes, but also this intense anticipation of God stepping in. The message feels both sobering, remember, prepare, respond, and also full of hope.
Absolutely. Because the core message is transformation. What was hoped for, what Elijah was preparing for, the ultimate heart-turner, Jesus, he came. He addressed the threatened consequences. He opened the way for reconciliation.
The path to healing is there.
It is. The way is open.
Which leaves us with some searching questions, doesn't it? What heart restoration might be needed in your family? And what's your part in that turning of hearts today?
It's profound to think that the same divine power at work back then is still working today, turning hearts, preparing us. May we be people who hold on to truth, who live with expectation, who actively work for restoration in our own circles, and who can look towards that ultimate future day with joy, not dread.